Okay, hi everyone. We're looking at your last part of transport, okay, which is basically the impact transport has on the environment and people. Okay, before we look at this article, let's do a quick recap from your previous handout. From your previous handout, what do you remember about the effects? How transport system benefit people and economy? Do you still remember? Okay, from the previous handout, we learned that people, because they're able to, with transport systems, they're able to move to different parts of the city easily to meet their needs. So for example, some of you need to move from your home to school to study. Some of you, your family, you need to go to, let's say, Orchard to buy certain things, okay? Or some people need to move to the work, go to the CBD to work, okay? So because they're able to move to different parts of the city to meet their needs, they are able to then improve their quality of life. Okay, and you also learned from the previous handout that transport systems allow the movement of goods and services, okay, which then facilitates the economic activities to happen. Okay, so let's recap what's economic activities. Economic activities is anything that involves the making and selling of goods and services. Okay, so for example, okay, the canteen store, they are selling food to you, they're selling goods, they are providing services to you, okay, but they cannot do this selling if they don't buy raw ingredients for them to cook, okay, and they cannot get raw ingredients if the raw ingredients don't get to move to school. All right. So if this doesn't happen, then there is no economic activities, then nobody is earning money. Okay. But if the whole country has a good transport system, this can move easily, economic activities can happen. What will then happen? The economy can then grow. Okay. All right. Do you see this happening in this article here? Okay, can I pause this video? Well, once you found it, can you unpause the video to continue? Oops. Okay, are you done? All right, so let's take a look. Okay, so from Amazon, do you see that they actually, because of the building of this highway, it does make their life better. Okay, so we do see that yes, now that they have built this highway across the rainforest, where as you learn in Sec 1, rainforest is very dense forest, right? A lot of trees, a lot of plants. It's not easy to pass through. Okay, so it makes it easier for them to move across the country easily. Okay, so easier to move across country, especially the rainforest, to meet their needs. And you also see that it's easier to transport goods, right? Okay. Okay, so this is what you have seen that is brought to over here. Okay. Now, what are some of the problems you see from the article about transport systems? So they built this road across the Brazilian Amazon rainforest. Like this road over here, and this the whole rainforest that's been cut into two. What are some of the problems that you can see from here? Okay, so you could see that with more accessibility, they have actually encouraged more destruction of the physical and natural environment. Okay, and then there's also pollution that can expose the natives living inside there. All right, so if you were to look at the map, right, of the rainforest, okay, let me bring you to the Trans-Amazonian Highway. Okay, so this is Brazil. Brazil is over here. This is the Amazon rainforest. Actually, this is a big area. Now you can see, I'm not sure you can see this line over here. This is the Trans-Amazonian Highway. So it connects one part of Brazil to the other end of Brazil, especially through the dense rainforest. All right. So in order to build this, you cut some trees, okay? But what also happens that when you make it more accessible, do you see all this pattern that looks like a fishbone? Okay, like a main fishbone and a lot of fins, a lot of spikes sticking out. Okay, and this spike is about easily a few kilometers thick. So what's all this spike? Now, because of this main highway, it made it easier for people to come in and then deforest the land further inside. Okay, so transport system made it easier for people to access from one end to the end of the country, but it also made it easier for them to access the forest and cause even more deforestation, as you can see. So you can see that the whole highway, like here, so many fishbone pattern, it has encouraged a lot of deforestation. Here as well, here as well, here, oh my goodness, it's even worse. Okay, so although one of some of the problems that it can create, it can actually encourages destruction of the forest, destruction of natural environment because of transport systems. Okay, and also you saw from the picture, you also saw from the figure that it can also bring about pollution, which can then destroy people's health. Okay, now what are the problems that we'll be learning about? We also learn that at a global scale, when transportation system is very good and you encourage more people to travel, you may actually worsen global warming. Okay, and of course for people other than pollution, that leads to health effects. Okay, negative health effects, right? We'll also be looking at, for example, okay, how traffic congestion helps and safety risks can lead to problems for people. Okay, so you're also looking at health pollution, which can lead to health risks. We can also look at safety risk. Okay, and as we mentioned just now, there's also the issue of traffic congestion. How does it then also affect people? Okay, now of course there's some benefits that is mentioned. That it was mentioned just now. There's also the idea of if you have a well-designed system, it allows people to, especially the people who are with cannot move too much, like their physical disabilities or they are elderlies. Okay, now if you allow them to if you do a transport system well, you can actually make their life easier by helping them to move across the city more easily. Okay, which allow them to meet more their needs and to then improve their quality of life. All right. So you might be thinking, why I put a banner scale here, right? Okay. So at one end, we want to improve, we want to expand our transport system to bring about the benefits we have mentioned here. Make it easier for people to move and meet their needs, make it easier for the economy, the country to move their goods and services, to make the economy grow, help more people to move so that they can meet their needs, all right? But it also comes with problems. It comes with pollution, it comes with health risks, safety risks, congestion, and also it destroys the natural environment and even causes a global problem. Okay, so in building more transport system, in expanding transport system, we want the benefits, but it comes about with problems. How do we balance both? Okay, so we're going to look into this deeper, and in the process, we want to see why are all these impact important. Okay, so how do you decide if something is important? Something is important because it is large scale, it affects a lot of people, cover a large area, or it's a long-term problem. Okay, so I want you to tell me, based on what we're looking at later, why are these impact important? Is it because it is a large-scale impact, or is it because it is a long-term impact? Okay, so let's take a look at the first one. So first of all, let's take a look at the impact on physical environment. So we also talk about how when you build transport systems, you may cut it across the forest, or you may use it, you may change the whole environment totally. Okay, so you may actually clear out the whole forest, you may actually cut out the whole mountain, you may also reclaim land, okay, and as a result, you bury the coastal areas, okay, to build transport infrastructure. So all these can destroy the habitats, which leads to extinction. And in some cases, even though you don't destroy the whole habitat, you cut it into half, all right? It makes it harder for the animals to survive. Why? Because you reduce the areas that they can survive, they can get their food from, okay? And as a result, it's harder for them to survive and it's easier for them to become extinct. Okay, one example is in Singapore actually. Let me zoom out. Okay, let's go to Singapore itself. Okay, so this is Singapore Island. Let's turn to north. Now you have the main central catchment reserve. Okay, so Yishun is over here. All right, Chung Cheng High is about somewhere here. So you have this big nature reserve, the central catchment reserve. Okay, now we have this smaller catchment. It's called Bukit Timah. Okay, Bukit Timah Nature Reserve. It's also a nature reserve. So basically, this is where a lot of the forests are at. All right. Now, before 1980s, this whole area, Central and Bukit Timah, they were one big nature reserves. So animals, if they are not doing well here, they could easily move to Bukit Timah. Okay, and Bukit Timah, if the animals do not find enough food, they can easily move to Central catchment area to find food. All right, but in the 1980s, what happened was that Woodlands Town was developed. Okay, so they built Woodlands Town, and a lot of people living in Woodlands needs to travel down south to Jurong for work or the CBD for work. Okay, so they need to move to meet different needs. All right, so instead of going one big round and crowd with people in Yishun and Ang Mo Kio, if you build a direct route, it's a much shorter route for them, and they can reach these areas much faster. Okay, so to improve accessibility, they decided to build this Bukit Timah Expressway. So this BKE that's built across. But in the process of improving accessibility, you realize that this road has actually cut these two nature reserves into half. Okay, so for many years, right, the animals in the Bukit Timah Nature Reserve they found it it's much harder for them to survive because anything happened here, they couldn't survive. They want to go over to the other side, the central catchment area for more food or resources, they couldn't. Okay, and if they need to do it, they must actually run across the expressway. All right, so how big is the expressway? Let's take a look. Okay, so the expressway is, imagine such a long, you need to cross all the fast moving cars just to get across. Okay, so it is very hard for animals to survive. All right, so this is some past incidents you can see in page 3 of your notes. This very rare local deer, Samba deer. All right, there was a few incidents where they wanted to cross over the Central Catchment Nature Reserve to look for more food. So they were so desperate that they actually ran across the traffic. Okay, and most of the time they don't make it, they get knocked down by vehicles. All right, and as a result, so it's harder for these animals to survive and it's easier for them to be extinct. Okay, and of course, land reclamation. All right, so let's take a look over here. Changi was not built on. Changi was not built on land that was already there. Okay, Changi Airport was actually filled through land reclamation. Let me just adjust this. Oops, what's going on? Okay, let me zoom out and orientate ourselves to the north. Okay, so look at the eastern side, right? You see this squarish looking land. This was actually all reclaimed, all right? But in the process of reclaiming, we have lost a lot of sea habitats. Okay, now actually unique to Changi, you will see a lot of these seagrass habitats. All right, so they have a lot of like starfishes, a lot of shell animals living in all this seagrass. And this seagrass is fed by this, you also see a lot of these rare species, rare animals living in a seagrass habitat. And the seagrass do feed this special animal called dugong. Okay, this is one eating the grass. This is a dugong, this is not me. Okay, so in reclaiming to build this transport node, as you can see, this is Changi Airport. We have destroyed a lot of the seagrass habitats as a result. Okay, so this example you have seen here, you see this was a seagrass patch where a lot of animals live. And in Changi Airport, they actually reclaimed over it and they destroyed all the habitats here. Okay, you might see a trail over here. This is evidence of a dugong feeding. Actually, this is the trail of the path taken by the dugong. Okay, so now you know that this is how transport system can change physical environment and lead to some of this impact. I want you to pause the video and help me decide Why is this impact important? Is it because they lead to large-scale problems, which affects a lot of people or large area? Or is it because this is a long-term problem? Okay, and why do you say so? So pause and try, and when you're done, just unpause the video. Okay, now you're done. Let's take a look. So when it's harder for animals to survive because you cut up their habitats into smaller fragments, they are restricted to smaller areas, it's harder for them to survive, and it's easier for them to become extinct. Why is this an important problem? Is it because it's a large-scale problem or a long-term problem? Well, animal extinct is a long-term problem, right? Because animals can no longer come back once they're extinct. Okay, so animals extinction, when species goes extinct, it is permanent. You cannot recover this anymore. It's not like after a few years, the animals will miraculously come back. Okay, so it's a long-term issue. It's important because it's a permanent problem. Okay, likewise, when you destroy the flora and fauna, you destroy the habitats, it leads to extinction, the destruction, and the extinction is a long-term problem. It can never recover. It's not like I remove Changi Airport, I dig out the land again, and all these animals will come back, the habitats will come back. No. Okay? So, this is a permanent problem. That's why it's long term. Okay? And habitats get destroyed. Okay, so in our goals to make things more convenient, improve our quality of life, to enable better, To enable to enable economic activities. This is the price we pay actually. Okay, let's move on. Another physical problem, okay, is increase in carbon footprint. Now, what's carbon footprint? Okay, it's not like the carbon go and step somewhere and there's a footprint. Okay, so footprint, as it suggests, is something left behind by you. Okay, so what is the carbon that you left behind? Whatever activities you do, the amount of carbon dioxide released because of the activities is your carbon footprint. Okay, so for example, if you turn on the air conditioner, you need to generate more electricity to run the air conditioner. So the more electricity generated, the carbon dioxide that is produced to make the electricity, okay, is part of the carbon footprint. Okay, if you take a car to, if your parents drove to school, the amount of carbon dioxide released from burning all that fuel is also your carbon footprint. Okay, you take a bus, the bus has released carbon dioxide, but it's shared by so many more people, so your carbon footprint is smaller. Okay, so what happens that when transport system develop, right, it actually encourages people to travel more because it's more convenient now. So for example, with more airports, more people are willing to fly. Okay, with more train stations, more people are willing to travel around. Okay, so planes actually emit a lot of carbon dioxide. The carbon footprint is tremendous. Okay, so in order to meet all this demand, transport system actually burn more fossil fuel, which releases more carbon dioxide. Okay, that is how it increases the carbon footprint of individuals. All right, so with more carbon footprints released, what can happen? Okay, so you may have learned from primary school about greenhouse effect, right? Okay, so basically greenhouse gas, there are special gases like carbon dioxide. What happens that when the sun and energy reaches Earth, okay, it hits the surface, and by right, if there's no greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, all the energy will be released back in space. Okay, so what happens that if you're like the moon where there's no greenhouse gas and no atmosphere, daytime it can be like 80 degrees, and nighttime it can be like minus 110 degrees. Okay, so it's not possible for humans to live. But what greenhouse gases do, which is essential for our survival, is that when the heat from Earth is going to escape, they absorb the heat first. Okay, so they allow some heat to escape, but they absorb the heat first, and this heat is heated back into the Earth atmosphere and the Earth's surface. Okay, so that in the daytime, there isn't a lot of heat to rise up to 80 degrees. It's stuck at about 20 to 30 degrees. Okay, at nighttime, when we are losing all the heat, we don't drop to negative 110. There's always heat from the greenhouse gases re-released back into the air to warm us up. Okay, so a greenhouse gas is important, greenhouse effect is important, because if not, we cannot survive. But the problem is that because of our burning of fossil fuels, right, like oil and fuel, there's more greenhouse gases now to absorb the heat. Okay, so as a result, a lot more heat is trapped in the atmosphere, okay, which then changes climate patterns. Okay, so with more carbon dioxide released in the atmosphere, what happens is that there's more heat being trapped, enhancing greenhouse effect. You see the word is enhancing. Enhancing means worsen it, add on. That means there was already greenhouse effect, all right? But now with more carbon dioxide, it adds on the effect even more, which then leads to global warming. Okay, and this can lead to major changes, like for example, because you warm up, the temperatures in the world increases, the ice will melt. With the ice melts, there's a high sea level rise. Sea level will increase because there's more water in the sea now. Okay, and then because there's more heat, there can be more evaporation in some places, leading to more droughts. And the wind patterns may actually may change because of the heat differences. They may push the water to some places and cause it to flood more. Then result leading to more death and injuries globally. Okay, so one of the biggest cause is actually airplanes. Improvements of airplanes make it easier for people to fly around, but they burn a lot of fossil fuel because there's a lot of energy needed to lift people up to such a high distance, travel at such a speed. Okay, so that contributed to a lot of carbon footprint around the world. All right, so this problem here, is it a large-scale problem or a long-term problem, or is it both? So can you use this to explain why is this impact important? Okay, I'll pause the video, and once you are done to decide, unpause it. Okay, are you done? All right, now some people may argue that it's a large-scale problem. Why? Because it's global. Okay, correct? It's large-scale because it's a global issue. Okay, so that's why it's a big scale problem. That's why it's important. Now, some of you may also argue that, but this is also a long-term problem. All right, why do you say so? Because you say that some of these things are not reversed, cannot be reversed easily. Okay, global enhanced greenhouse effect cannot be reversed easily. So this issue will last for a long period of time. Okay, so yes, it is important because of both is a large-scale problem and also because it's a long-term problem. Okay, so there are some of the effects of climate change, global warming. Other than hotter temperatures, it can drive the weather and climate system to change in the world, so causing some places to have more storms, and at the same time, some places to have more droughts. Okay, so some places may evaporate more and the water may move to some places to lead to more flooding and more severe storms. And of course, when the water heats up, more of the ice caps, glaciers will melt, so more water will lead to a rising ocean. Okay, and of course when it's heated, it expands and it also rises the sea level. All right, now we're done with the physical. Let's look at the human. So what are some of the human impacts? Okay, so we mentioned earlier, if you have a well-designed system, it can help improve the mobility of certain groups. Okay, help them to move from one place to another place easier. So for example, Singapore in more recent years, right, you built barrier-free, we added lifts, okay, we have more spaces for people on wheelchairs, okay, and it allows them to travel to different parts of the city in an affordable manner, which improves their quality of life. Okay, so for example, this is an example that I'd like to show you. When I was a student like you, that sounded so long ago, buses were not barrier-free. MRT stations do not have lifts. Buses, you need to actually climb a few steps up to board the bus, something like this. Okay, whether is it a double-decker or a single-deck bus, you need to climb some steps up to board the bus. All right, so obviously for the elderly, it is a very difficult thing. For people with wheelchairs, it's even more difficult. Okay, so a lot of them actually had to use private taxis just to move around the city, and it is too expensive for them to move around. So a lot of them actually choose to stay at home and they don't move around the city as much as you see today. Okay, so when a transport system does it well, it can actually improve their lives a lot. Okay, So is this a large scale or long-term thing? What do you think? Pause and you tell me. Okay, once you have decided, unpause the video. Okay, have you decided? Well, some of you say that it's long-term because you permanently make their life easier. Okay, some of you say it's large scale because it's the whole system. So it's possible to look at both. Okay, so it can be large scale because it can be the whole of the city that has its lives improved. Okay, or it can be long-term because it is changed their life permanently. So either way can be fine to argue. Okay, but of course there's also problems. All right, so if a system is not well designed, it can lead to congestion. The classic case is like, for example, in Thailand, where they don't really restrict the number of cars. So there's too many cars for certain roads. Okay, so this has caused the vehicles to gather at certain roads. So it's not the whole city that's in traffic congestion, only certain places, because it's not well designed. Maybe you need to force everyone to pass through this road when, you know, if you have a better designed road network, they don't need to all squeeze into one road. Okay. And of course, if you don't have a good transport system, public transport system, more people have to rely on road vehicles, okay, which takes out even more space on the roads that leads to congestion. Okay, so the number of vehicles then exceeds the capacity of the road, which causes congestion, especially during peak hours. What's peak hours? Peak means maximum. So this is where the time where a lot of people are traveling, especially like before work started and after work ends. Okay, so with congestion, goods cannot be moved in a timely manner, economic activities is slowed down, and the growth of the economy is limited. Okay, and it also frustrates people. They don't want to travel to certain parts of the city, and then that reduces the quality of life. Okay, so you might have encountered some TikTokers in Southeast Asia talking about how in the weekends they don't really want to go out to meet their friends because of the crowd and the congestion. Okay, so is this a large-scale problem or a long-term problem? Okay, you have to decide. Pause the video. Once you have decided, please unpause it. Okay, have you decided? All right, now some of you say that it's a large-scale problem because the whole city is choked up. Not every part of the city is choked up, but it's good enough to slow down economic activities and the growth of the city. So yeah, it makes sense to say it's large-scale. Okay, so whole city economy can decline or has its growth limited. Okay, long-term problem, I think this part, not many of you, if you not clear reasons why it should be a long-term problem, because all I need to do is just to build more roads or to control the number of vehicles, and it can quickly resolve the problem. Okay, so it's not really a long-term problem per se. All right, okay, let's move on. What else? That can also help. So you've seen from the video, you've seen from the picture above, okay? So when it's not well designed, people living in the city can have health problems. Why? So when fossil fuels are burnt, okay, it can release a lot of harmful gas, and it only affects places with high road density. So only these places can breathe in a lot of polluters that can cause damage. And when you expose it over a long period of time, people can develop such diseases, which can then make them have poor physical well-being and reduce their quality of life. Okay, there's also sometimes you have modes gathering at certain places that generate a lot of noise, like trains. So people who live along these places have difficult time. Okay, they are affected by the noise, which can lead to hearing loss and stress-related diseases. That can then lead to all these disease, poor physical well-being, and quality of life. Okay, so this one has been done for you. It is a large-scale problem? No, because it's only localized to certain areas in the city, but it is an important problem because the health effects are long-term and it's often permanent. Okay, another one is that transport systems, because it attracts a lot of people, it makes it a target for criminal and terrorist activities. So for example, like trains, for example, there's always a lot of people during peak hours. So it may attract criminals there to commit theft or to, what's outrage of modesty? Basically molest, okay, or even more. All right, so because it's so crowded, it's easy to do all these things, commit all these crimes. So transport systems may be a target for such crimes, okay, and hence pose a safety risk. Now, for a bigger issue is that because there's so many people, especially interchanges, it can attract terrorist attack. Okay, so as a result, the transport system has spend resources on improving security instead of using the money to improve the transport system. Okay, I'm not sure you have heard of this before. Okay, in 2005, that was after you were born, before you were born, a few terrorists actually targeted the transport system in London because it's a time where it has a lot of people. So one of them actually bombed the double-decker bus, as you can see. Okay, some of them actually bombed the whole tube network. You see, this is the train network that's been bombed because there's so many people inside here. Okay, so you will see that there's certain cars that is reserved for certain MRT train cabins are meant for women only. There was once I didn't know when I was in Japan. I went to such a carriage and everybody was staring at me like I'm a pervert. Okay, so I didn't realize that, oh, it's a women's only carriage, and I moved away very quickly. Now, why do they have a separate women's only carriage? Because there were incidences during peak hours where men, these women, a lot of women were actually molested, outrage of modesty. Okay, because they are close to each other, so women can actually get molested easily. And these people who outrage their modesty can simply say, oh, sorry, accidentally, because it's very crowded. Okay, so in fact, it's not just Japan. In fact, Indonesia also do this. All right, because the fact that transport systems attract a lot of people to use it. So crimes, people who commit crimes, want to commit crimes, or terrorist attack will have a better chance there, which is why transport systems can be a safety risk. Okay? Yeah, and it's a large-scale problem. It's not really a long-term problem because, as you can see, it can be fixed easily. But it's a large-scale problem because when it happens, it can cause fear for the whole system. People don't want to use the system because of all these attacks and stuff like that. Okay, so we looked at all these different impacts on humans and the physical environment. Let's give it a try with some questions. Okay. Now, first question: you have this situation over here. You need to identify the impact and explain why it's important. So tell me whether is it large scale or small scale. Okay, and then you go on to explain how the risk on safety is a negative effect. So negative means you must tell me why is it a problem. So let's do this first. Okay, let me open a new window so you can look at this side by side. Okay, so this is a heavy smoke, a lot of smoke. Okay, so this is clearly not a natural environment, right? So you can skip page 2 and page 3. It's not physical environment. It's purely a human environment. Okay, so let's start with page 5, which is being shown here. Okay, yes, there's some congestion, but the idea of heavy smoke, all these pollutants, all right, is probably pointing at health risk. Okay, so you might want a stronger answer to be health risk. Okay, and explain why is it important. So you must tell me why is it big scale or long term. So you can use this to help you lah. All right, so use these steps to help you talk about why is it a big long-term problem. Okay, now next question, explain how risk on safety is a negative effect of transport system. Negative means you must tell me it's a bad thing. So you can show me how is it a problem, a long-term problem to show that it's negative also. Okay, so for 4 marks, you must tell me how transport system, what happens, how does it lead to risk of safety, and eventually why is it a problem, why is it negative. All right, that would then earn you your 4 marks. Okay, so give this a try and we will go through this in class. Okay.